Alrighty, good morning everybody. This is a prepping video. I don't know how far we're going to get before my child interrupts because I forgot that it's a public holiday, but we're going to go anyway. So I've removed my board, so my cutting board, mainly because I don't want people to try and guess the size of the patterns with my board. So by removing that, nothing dodgy can happen, theoretically anyway. So I'm using this really fun Disney print. For those who are in Australia, it's at Spotlight. And I can put the barcode number in the description, so you can just search the barcode on their website. So this is going to be my outside fabric, and then I've picked this kind of fun purple with the dots and the lines. I actually really love this. I bought heaps of it. And then my accent vinyl is going to be my glitter black, because I love that too. So the first thing we want to do is find the exterior. So the exterior ones are going to be done out of this fabric. Now, because I'm cutting and I'm going to draw on the back of the fabric, I'm going to place this down like this, so that everything's going to face the same way. And I like to draw on the back just in case I make a mistake. So because I can see through this fabric, I'm actually going to line up the center with one of the Jack and Sally's so that you're going to see it. It's going to look good. So then I'm just going to trace around this shape. And this is just a normal pen. If you think you're going to make lots of mistakes, or if you want to draw it from the top side, you could use something erasable like a Chaco pen or a friction pen. Or just, a stick of chalk if you want to. That is entirely up to you. So we're going to cut one of this and then one mirrored, which means flip the pattern over. So again, this time my Jack here is upside down. So I'm actually going to put this upside down so that I'm going to see him the right way up. So the pattern on the fabric is one upside down, one the right way. So I just want to make sure that my center one is the right way up, or it's going to look weird because that's the focal point of the bag. So that is that one done. We also need to cut out of your exterior fabric some of these little things, but because I'm putting the vinyl on the top, I might cut it out of a black so that we're not going to see it. And then this one here is our zipper tab. So I'm going to place it right here so that it goes right over Sally's head. Oh, my phone's got an alarm going off. There we go. Right, so I've cut that one. So now I've got this system so that I don't forget anything. I've got these little rings, they're little card holders. You can get them in a bunch of different sizes. And they just open and then click close. So once I've done the piece I need to do, I'm going to punch a hole and add it onto the ring. So I can do the same to this one because I've cut this one now. I'm also going to need a lining out of this actually, so I'm not going to put it in the thing. We're going to move that. So basically, as I do all of my pattern pieces, they go back on the hook. This is true for a new pattern or one I've done like several times over, because I can track where I'm up to with everything. So I'm just going to chop this off now. And I always run along the bottom like this. I'm going to go across to the next piece and then up. So because this is a bigger print, I have wasted a little bit of fabric, but the bag will look a lot better because I've centered those designs, because it's a big design. If it was a smaller repeat, I probably wouldn't have done that because you don't need to. I would have just butted it up against the edge and off we go. But if we're going to go to the effort to make a beautiful bag, we need to make sure it's going to be beautiful. And that little bit of extra fabric There's nothing really. Okay. I'm not going to put this fabric away because I'm going to have it as half the accent on my strap, because I like to do those kinds of straps. So now I'm just going to cut out this fabric. If I wanted to, I could set this aside and do all the cutting at the end, but I personally like to switch it up a little bit. So I cut all of this one and then all of the next one, and then just start building piles. And then I've also brought my bin over here. So we take this little bit, because I can't really do anything with that, and throw it in the bin. So my little strap connectors are going to have Sally's head on it, which I think is really fun. And I didn't waste any extra fabric doing that because I took it out of, you know, this little excess over here. Alright, so that's that one. And for those that are curious about my scissors, these are the Fiskars spring-loaded ones. You can buy them at Spotlight. I believe Americans can get them on Amazon. They are a game changer. They take like a day or two to get used to because your hands sit in a different position to normal scissors. But it's worth getting used to it because they are so much more gentle on your hands. So that bit there, that's not quite long enough to do a wristlet strap. But if I was thinking about that earlier, I could have cut it so it was longer, and then that would be the accent on a wristlet strap. But I can't do anything with that, so it's going in the bin. You could also keep those kinds of things for, what are they called? I can't remember. Quilting projects, like scrap busting things. I do not have the space to do that. I wish I did, but I don't. All right, so I'm going to take this. So now again, we need to cut one of these and then one mirrored. So I'm going to come along this edge over here, and I'm going to keep the other edge for cutting the strap. So all the small weird shaped pieces come from here, and then I just keep unrolling it. So I want to work along the width of the fabric. Like that. So that's that piece done. I only need that. So I'm just double checking. I'm reading it as I go. So I'm going to punch a hole and add it onto here. So that piece is now done. Actually, I'm going to do my strap connectors out of this as well. So there's one. Now, this vinyl, this is the vinyl that I got in. It's more like a leatherette, so it is a little bit softer. So if I wanted to make this stiffer, I could just iron some of the extra heavy iron-on non-woven, which I'm going to rename, by the way, because that's a mouthful. I might just call it Tory interfacing. But I could put some of that on the back, and then that would make that as thick as marine vinyl. So that's something that I could do if I wanted to. And I still might. I haven't decided. I like a good structured bag. Okay, so we're going to move along to this bit, and I'm going to take the other pieces I need to cut out. So we need our strap connectors. So there I'm going to do these out of this. And I just need one of those so that I'm going to punch a hole, add it onto my loop. This just helps to keep everything clean and organized, and you can see which pieces you've already done. Slowly trace around that. Draw the inside line, because this is my fun accent. Right. So I don't need to put a hole in this one because it will just loop over like so. I'm going to cut this straight one first. Add that to the pile. We're watching Pocoyo on television. We get very excited about stuff. So you're just going to hear random loud stomping and yelling and whatever. It's fine. It's nothing to be alarmed of. I just have a loud child. I was a loud child, so I'm not mad about it. Alright, so I'm going to fold this over like this and just do a snip. Now, if your scissors won't cut them, you can actually just apply pressure here, and it makes it way easier for the scissors. It's just like a little added, I don't know, pressure, I guess. I just do it there because it's also a more controlled snip. If you wanted to, you could also cut this out with like a craft knife or a rotary cutter and then just snip the short edges. I'm doing scissors because I understand a lot of you don't necessarily have all of those tools. Okay. Snip up the other side like that. So then that part is the rubbish, and that is our beautiful accent piece. Add it to the pile of done. Okie dokie. So that's a lining fabric, that's a lining fabric. And that. And that. Okay, so I can pop this aside. I am going to roll it back up because I will need my rotary color and ruler to get nice straight edges on that. So I'm going to pop that aside till I need those. And then I'm going to grab my lining. Now, it may not look like it, but this is actually directional. So I'm going to put it on the table like this. If you've got wrinkles in your fabric, you should definitely iron them out. I've got one here, but I don't know if it's going to affect my up here-ness. So I'm going to first take my big pocket lining piece and trace that out. Now, if I want to, I can get super pedantic. And if I put this edge along the circles, because it's a repeating pattern, I could do that for the next piece as well, so that the pattern in the lining will perfectly match up. So that is something I'm going to do because it looks good. And it's just that little extra bit, and I'm only going to waste like maximum 1 inch if I do it. So there's the first one. You just want to make sure your line's dark enough to see. Sometimes black is not actually the best option. And so then I'm going to line this up with the circles down here. So I'm only wasting between here and here, which is less than 1 inch. And that's just like a fine detail. Now, if it was a solid color, you obviously don't need to do this. You'd butt it right up against the other one. Or if it was like a miscellaneous repeat, like if it wasn't directional or anything, you could not do this as well. But because it is how it is, I just think it's going to make it look that little bit more professional on the inside of the bag. And the average person wouldn't notice that. But people that are slightly OCD or who also make bags appreciate that so much more because you've taken the thought and the time to do that. All right. We're going to need to cut 1 lining and 1 mirrored. Okay. I'm going to cut 1 this way and then 1 the other way. So this time I'm going to line the circles up along the bottom because that's where it fits. And I'm going to do the same to the mirrored version again so that we get that line up on the inside when we sew things together. Flip her over, line it up along the bottom there. So this time I'm only wasting maybe ½ an inch. Worth it. If you were starting with a flat piece of fabric, you actually could have gone big one, little one, and then the mirrored big one, little one, and you wouldn't waste any fabric. But mine was that much higher here, so that's what we're doing. Okay. So that's that and that. So again, I'm going to punch a hole. Now, you also don't want to punch the hole too close to the end. And I only do hole punching stuff when I've interfaced it. Otherwise, it just tears if it's just fabric. Now, I also require a zipper pocket. So, I'm thinking that I can get away with my tried and true pre-established pocket. Yes, this is going to work well. So, I just have this piece of laminate, and I pretty much use this for all my pockets ever. It may seem like a weird thing to do, but I can just put this down, and because it's acrylic, if I had my cutting board underneath, I could actually just cut this out with a rotary cutter, and I wouldn't even need a ruler because this acts as a ruler. So this is my tried and true pocket piece. So all bag patterns that I make, and I think Billy 50 uses the same size as me, which just worked out really well. And so then I love acrylic templates. One day I will either buy an acrylic template cutting machine or find someone that would like to stock mine, and I will get all of my templates of my own patterns done up because it's just quicker. All right, so these are all going to need interfacing, so I'm just going to kind of chuck them in a pile. And the size pocket that I do, you can actually use it in pretty every bag. Your pocket may just be a different size to the pattern. So I love that pattern piece. It was made from acrylic I got from the recycle yard at, you know, like a tip. They have all those like recycled things. They just have pieces of acrylic. So I got hubby to chop it up with a jigsaw for me. But just make sure if you're going to do that, you don't get really, really thick acrylic because the average jigsaw can't cut through it. Trust me, we tried. What it does is it actually melts. So you cut in a line and then it melts back together behind it. So thick is not necessarily better when it comes to the acrylic. Or, you know, you could probably contact local shops and see if they cut them for you. I know there's a few places that specialize in acrylic templates. I should actually see if there's one in Australia. If you know of one in Australia, please put it in the comments. So you'll notice that I'm not moving the fabric, I'm moving the scissors in this particular instance. Sometimes I move the fabric, and sometimes it's easier to move the scissors. And I'm always leaning the scissors on the table as I'm cutting. It gives extra stability and allows you to cut quicker. Up in the air, you need to have a lot more wrist control over your scissors. Whereas if I'm leaning here, I can cut a lot quicker. So a lot of people ask me how I get someone done in a day. This is possibly one of those things that you should know. I lean the scissors on the table. I also make sure I've got a big enough area so I'm not going to accidentally cut something underneath it. Just chop that bit off because it's in the way. And I always use the full length of the scissors. I see a lot of people who cut and they do this. Just little cuts like this. This is not good for your hand and you're not going to get very far with cutting. You want to try and use the full blade. That's why you buy bigger scissors, to get more out of your cut. And then before I put this back, I just cut off these bits because I'm never going to use them and it makes it harder to fold the fabric back up. Apparently I've been cutting from both ends of this, which is annoying. That's all right. I will fold that back up a little bit later. So all we've got left now is this piece and this piece. So for this black one, I'm just going to grab some black cotton, or black whatever this is, because this is going to go onto here and I don't necessarily want to see the fabric. So because I've used vinyl, I'm just going to cut a little piece off here. So I will use my Chaco pen because it's black and you're not going to see the normal pen. And I'm just going to cut them out of right here. So for those that have never seen a Chaco pen or Choco pen, I don't know. It's basically like a chalk wheel and it drops the dust where you draw the line. So it makes like a little weird ticking noise, but that's also how you know it's working. And so it just drops a little chalk line that quite easily erases if you need it to. So I'm just going to cut these out of this so that you wouldn't see it. Now, if you didn't use vinyl at the top, if you did this in another fabric, you'd cut these out of the fabric color. But the vinyl won't fold like the fabric. So that's why I've done that. And then again, I'm going to punch a hole and add it to the rest. Okay. I think we're ready to do the ironing. So I'm going to go put the iron on and move you guys so you can watch. I lied. I forgot to cut a lining. So that's the back piece of the lining, but I forgot to cut the lining of this one. Because I was like, I don't have enough pieces, and that's why. So, bring back my lining. This is also why I don't fold them until I know I'm good to go. So pick an end, any end. Apparently I've started from both. So now we're going to take this piece and oh, look at that. It's going to fit in there. I love it. And again, I'm going to start it on the circles so that it's all going to match up because I like matchy-matchy. So there's one, and then mirror that over. Now, I'm going to put this here, but only because I know that this fits a pocket. So the next bag that I make out of this, that's where the pocket will come from. Otherwise, you should put this piece down here so that you've got more space to do other things with. So that's just my train of thought to make sure that I'm wasting as little fabric as possible because fabric's pricey. And yes, I have a giant container of it behind me, but I promise it costs lots and lots. And I don't want to have to rush out and buy more. Part of me wants to use it all and just get it done. And the other part of me is like, get as many things out of it as possible. It's like a constant battle. But anyway. Alright, so I'm going to cut this one as well. So again, I'm using the full range of the scissors. And it's also going to help hurt my hand less. So if you've got arthritis, these scissors are amazing. Not that I have arthritis, but I can tell the difference when I use these to when I've been using the other scissors. My hands know these things. Alright, so there's one. Just make sure that you mirror them. So if you didn't want to trace them out like I have, you could actually fold your fabric in half and then just trace it once and cut the 2 layers at the same time. The reason I didn't do it that way is because my fabric didn't have a nice clean edge. But it would basically take you approximately half the amount of time to cut everything, so long as you were confident that you weren't going to have the fabric slip while you were cutting. I'm not a big fan of on the fold things. I will quite often print the pattern twice and join the 2 on the folds together to have the big piece, because I know I'm not very good at it. So I know that that's something that I can't do, so I do it in a different way. All right, now let's go and iron. All right, let's do this. So I buy myself, because I use so much interfacing, I buy myself a whole roll. So when you buy from me, I've got 1 roll for you guys, so you get nice straight edges, and then I've got my roll that usually looks a lot worse and more crooked than this. So what I do is I put it glue side up on my ironing board, and then I will just start to place. He's singing. I put these right side down like this, and I just, basically I'm playing Tetris to get everything as close to each other as humanly possible without letting it overlap. So it can touch, but you don't want it to overlap. So I've just played Tetris with these, and sometimes I have to move them because they don't line up as well as I'd hoped. I'm hoping that the big one, see that big one should fit in here. But see how it doesn't quite here? But if I shift this, that little bit, so I've got like a tiny gap there, but now I can get them all across. So Tetris played. And then this is just baking paper from the kitchen. Again, I have a whole roll of this that lives in here because I go through a lot of it. I use this for ironing, and I also use it as my drop sheet as such for when I'm doing some spray glue for projects that need the spray glue. So I usually just hold this for approximately 6 seconds. Depending on your iron, will depend on how long you have to hold it. You have to hold it longer than if it was just on the fabric, but it's quicker than having to try and cut this out separately. I also find that sometimes certain interfacings that you buy will shrink, and you obviously don't want that. So the medium non-woven stuff, I find when I was pre-cutting it and then ironing it on, it would shrink away from the edges, and I didn't like that. So this was my original alternative to that, and then I just also discovered it's way quicker. And then you can just move this along. So you won't use steam for this because the steam won't penetrate your baking paper. But if you wanted to, after you've cut it, you can come back and give it another iron and shoot it with some steam if you don't think that it's going to stay. I very rarely have that issue. I only have the issue of it not sticking if I don't hold it for the full, 6 seconds. If I get impatient and move along too quick, that's when it won't stick. And this is how I iron. So usually, I will actually cut like 4 or 5 projects at a time and then just do this. So you move it down, line them up again. Move it down like a production line. Because it is way quicker to stand here once than come and go and come and go. So then again, I'm going to shift this up to the edge of the board, ready for the next round of things. Not them. So now again, I'm going to line it up. And the other good thing about doing more of a production line, even if they're all different items, is you can play Tetris even better. So like this is okay. There's going to be gaps because of the shape of it. There's nothing I can do about that. But I feel like I've wasted as minimal as possible. Because like that one is slightly fitting into there. And they don't have to be perfectly straight. That's not a thing that has to happen. It's not the pattern. It's not like you're not going to see this. It doesn't matter if you've got them on weird angles, so long as they all get the interfacing. And then I'll show you how I chop it off. And then I would do the same to the exterior, except I've obviously got less pieces for that. And then we're going to go back and we're going to cut our straps. And the reason I haven't done it is because I took away my cutting board and put it on the floor. And that's just because I would like to protect the designer's patterns from people trying to copy from just my pictures and my videos. These patterns are awesome. I, who have designed some patterns, know how much work goes into them. It's not as quick as people think. So it's worth the however much they charge. Alright, so that should be, you can also just check and see if it's going to stick. So I can see that I haven't done this corner enough because I got impatient and moved it. I did know that, but see, these ones are all fine. So I just see if I can get my fingernails under it, and if I can't, it's stuck well enough. See, that one's fine now. That one's fine. So the way I chop this off is I always start this way because it's easier to get my hand in. And I'm going to cut along the bottom edge like this. And then I'm going to come down like this and then across. And what this is doing is it's both cutting it out and I'm not going to waste this section.
That's a maximum icy poles.
You want an icy? You can't have an icy pole this early. No.
Please, Mommy.
I know you're saying please, and I love that you're saying please. Do you want to say hello to everybody?
No.
You want to make icy poles? We have to go down the street and get some juice to make icy poles. Do you want to go for a drive down the street? Alright, so then we're just going to chop to there like that. So now obviously I've got a weird shape on this, but that'll fit pieces of many, many bags. And so then I can come back and individually chop all of these out. And again, I'm using the full range of the scissors. Like that. And so this just continues. And this is how I make bags. But the reason I did this video is because I wanted to show you how I'm going to line up all of the pieces. It's kind of fussy cutting, but it's also just going to look nicer. And I'm going to show you in the sewing video what I mean. Alright, so I'm going to turn the camera off now and just finish up this and then do the same with the exterior. So I will put the roll on the floor, lift it up, lay it down, put the pieces on, and then use my baking paper to iron them. So I will do all of that off camera, and then I will come and show you how I'm going to cut the strap. It got a bit hotter here, so I've changed clothes. This is now how I organize my patterns that I'm doing. So when I'm bulk cutting, I bought one of those 10 drawer cupboard things. So each drawer gets one pattern. So it's easy to store. I can stack them up here as I'm doing it, and it's all fine. So the first thing I've done is I've got my raw straight edge for my vinyl, and I've just folded it into 4 to make it easier for this. And then I'm just going to take my long ruler because I want it to go past the ends because it's much, much easier to do. And this one actually is a little bit blunt. I might get my other rotary cutter. So this one's my new blade. I can change that blade, but obviously for right now, who cares? So I'm just going to cut, and then I'm going to check to make sure that it cut all the way through all the layers. Like that. So now I've got half of my strip that I'm going to use for my strap. So that can go in the box. This can go away. And then I'm going to take my fabric for my outside and I'm going to fold that in 4 as well. So in half and then in half again. And the reason we're folding it in half is so that I can get to this edge on here. Hold on one second. There we go. Now you can see what I'm doing. Right. So I folded it so that the straight edge is here. Now this one already had a straight edge, which is great. So I'm going to cut this one at 1.5 inches. And I'm going to cut 2 strips of this. Now, I won't use 2 full strips, but the rest of the strip can be used for a wristlet strap for, say, I don't know, a clutch or whatever you're doing, really. So now I've got these 2 strips. So what I'm going to do before the other video is I'm going to line them up like this, and then I'm going to flip this one over on that angle. And I'm going to have the white edges hanging out the end and sew it diagonally across here so that I can fold it out as one continuous piece. And then I'm going to fold both raw edges to the inside like this. So I'll go do the sewing and then we'll go back to the ironing board. So I've sewed that, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So we've sewed diagonally across, and I did it in green so you can see. And so we just made sure that these white raw edges hung off. And then I'm just going to cut in and leave about 1/4 inch seam allowance like this. And then the first thing I'm going to iron is this seam open and flat. So I'm going to put it right sides up and then separate it so it's going to sit flat. And what this is going to do is make it thinner. So I'm going to also shoot it with some steam to just really make that as flat as possible. So now when we're sewing, that won't be a giant bump that we have to go over. So now I'm going to fold under that white edge. And again, shoot it with steam to make it stay down. And then we just bend both the edges into the center. Now you don't want to have steam on while you're doing this or you will burn your fingers. Been there, done that. It's not advised. So then we're just going to squish it and work our way up. You don't want to go too fast because we still need the heat of the iron to press those seams. And if you ever get worried, you can shoot it with some steam. Just make sure that your hands are not near it because it hurts. I've burnt myself with steam way too many times. It's not fun, I promise. So I'm just basically pinching it together and then pushing it down in what I have deemed the center. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly centered, so long as you're doing it the same way the whole way along. Otherwise your patterns are going to twist. So you want to try and get as close to the center as possible, but you also want to make sure that it's consistent the whole way along. So I'm going to shoot steam here because this is the join and I want that to really just be flat. Now I won't need the whole rest of this, but I am going to iron the whole rest of it because the end part I can use for a wristlet strap, in which case it's already ironed for me. So I can skip a bit in the next one that I do. I do actually have a wristlet bag in mind, so one day when I have time I will design it. Not today though. Today I have prepping and orders to do. And then at the end, I'm just going to shoot it because I can't be bothered waiting. Shoot it with some steam. So that is now ironed and ready for making. So all I need to do is to this tub, I'm just going to add all the hardware that I need. And then it will go back in the tub ready to sew. I won't be sewing this today, but I will post the video today as I've made it. So tomorrow we are doing this bag. All right, guys, I hope that was somewhat educational. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, but I think I'm all right. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye.